Welcome to the AZ Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Hamid Shojai. Let's go. I'm here with Francine Hardaway. I am so excited to see you, Francine.
Yay! This is my first trip out in the real world in 1 year, and I'm so happy it could be here.
I'm so excited that it is here, actually. So, I feel honored.
I didn't even know that you sold your companies, and there's just so much that we've all missed out on when all the events shut down.
I know. And you've gotten your vaccines?
I'm vaccinated.
Ready to party, Francine.
I'm ready to party. I'm here with the dog. The dog is asleep. Everyone on Clubhouse knows the dog.
I love your dog, by the way. Maggie is awesome. So well behaved. She's absolutely amazing.
For now. Yes.
Yeah.
But if a FedEx person comes by,
she goes after him.
No guarantees. No, she's like me. She has a big loud mouth and no bark. I mean, no bite. She's all bark like me.
Francine, there are so many things I want to talk to you about. You've been a staple in the startup community in Arizona. I want to talk to you about that. You're doing stuff on Clubhouse. I want to talk to you about that. You have a new crypto coin coming out, that came out. I have no idea how you do all of this stuff. And you said you have a big birthday coming up.
I'm going to be 80.
That's mind-blowing to me.
80 on May 14th.
You're like my hero, Francine. I've known you for, I don't know, about 10 years or so.
Maybe 10 years, yeah.
And it's always been mind-blowing how active you are, how sharp you are, how integrated as part of the startup community in Phoenix you are. Where do you want to start?
I think we'll let's start with Clubhouse.
Let's do Clubhouse, yeah. And I know you've been an early adopter of Clubhouse. And this is what blows me away about you, Francine, because you're like an early adopter of technology that I'm not sure that's going to be a thing yet.
I know.
You're all over it.
I totally know how you are and how I am. But, and that's how one of these things leads to the other. Well, let me tell you about Stealthmode.
Okay.
And how Stealthmode.
That's right. So
Stealthmode got on Clubhouse.
Official title of Francine is co-founder of Stealthmode.
Right.
Okay.
And Stealthmode was founded in 1999 to help the startup community. And it was a partnership between me and Ed Nussbaum, still a partnership between me and Ed Nussbaum, to do anything we could to help the startup community in Arizona on the theory that a rising tide, all of this is going to come together at the end.
Right.
That a rising tide can lift all boats. And that if Ed and I did enough for the community, and if the community got good enough, we'd survive financially. We'd make money.
Yeah.
So right after we started, of course, came the dot-com bust.
In 2000, that's right.
That's right. And Bill Reichert had funded, Bill Reichert from Silicon Valley, from Garage, had funded a company that we had raised money for. And it, of course, went right out of business when the bust came. And for the next, I'm going to say, maybe 5 or 10 years, it was a consulting scramble. Help these startups any way that you can. If you can't get money from them, don't bother. Don't take any. But Ed then went off and started ventures of his own that were very successful. And I just kept on doing this in the startup community. And I bought the house in Silicon Valley in Half Moon Bay in, I'm going to say 2005. And I stayed up there for about 7 years, every summer and on all the holidays. And I met everybody up there in what I would refer to as the glory days of Silicon Valley, because they were the Web 2.0 days, and all the people in Web 2.0 were high on social media. They were friendly. They were,
They were a little humble because the dot-com bust had just happened.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a great time to get to know people. Well, let's fast forward to 2020, and the pandemic started in March.
Right.
And a friend of mine, Ben Parr, who I've known for 15 years from Silicon Valley, started a list, a Facebook group. And the Facebook group was to remove some of the fear
Right.
that people had at the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
And he put a couple of people he said, who wants to join this group? We're going to keep each other company during the lockdown. That was another great thing that happened, by the way, is Ben's group, which still exists.
Okay.
And turned out to be mostly people I already knew, but Ben has a much wider life than I do because he lives half on the West Coast and half on the East Coast. So he brought in a bunch of people from New York.
Nice.
And I, of course, grew up in New York.
You've had such an amazing career. Like,
so bring in people from New York, and I'm at home, right? So I'm talking to all these people on this list. I'm trying not to mention the name of it because it's supposed to not be public. But anyway, one day somebody came to this list, and I think it might have been Josh Ellman, who had been a venture capitalist, and said. And there's an app that's looking for beta testers. Well, I'm stuck in the house.
Right.
I cannot do anything. I speak to no one but dogs. You know,
it's like perfect timing.
my roommate is an introvert, so I'm like, let me add it.
And it's a conversation app.
And it's a conversation.
It's perfect.
And I'm a talker.
Right.
So I sign up, and Ed, as you know, is a much shyer guy.
Yeah. He's not shy on Clubhouse, by the way.
No, that's where where I'm going next.
I love it.
That's where I'm going next.
Yeah.
Ed, my introverted partner, gets on Clubhouse with me just because he's like, okay, if Francine does it, I'm going to do it.
Right.
So he gets on Clubhouse with me. And he falls in love with the mechanics of it and the social quality of it. And it doesn't, for some reason it hits him. And it really turns on everything in Ed that becomes very focused.
Yeah.
And Ed gets very focused on Clubhouse. And before I know it, Ed is being referred to as the mayor of Clubhouse.
That's awesome.
And the reason is that when Ed gets very focused on anything, he doesn't sleep. So he's up day and night on Clubhouse. I got an invite for my daughter, Chelsea, when invites were really hard to get. I begged for Clubhouse for an invite for my daughter, who never goes on. But anyway, I got her an invite, and she said to me, "Mom, do you realize that Ed is
on there 24/7?"
That's right. Ed is always on Clubhouse, and he was on there in a very helpful way. Clubhouse has gone through a number of iterations. It turns out that I was like number 740 on Clubhouse,
Wow.
and Ed was number 742.
And they have something like over 10 million users.
No, it's 20 million.
It's 20 million.
Yes.
In about a year, they've gone from...
And they don't have Android yet.
That's insane. Insane amount of growth. So
part of it is FOMO, and part of it is that the music industry was even worse off than I was.
Right.
I spent about a month I spent about a month being very depressed, feeling like my life was over. My life was all community service, and I'm stuck in the house. What am I going to do?
Right.
Well, how would you feel if you were Snoop Dogg?
Right.
Or MC Hammer?
Right.
Or, or anyone. And the music industry was totally shut down. And so I can't remember exactly the way it happened, but there is a woman named Fadia who is very big in the music industry, and she got invites for all her friends.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden, Clubhouse was absolutely flooded by people from the music industry who were fascinating.
Yeah.
They're just fascinating.
Well, I think Ben Horowitz, who's one of the...
Ben loves music.
Yeah, and he has a lot of connections in the music industry.
Exactly.
So I think that may have been the catalyst for it. Because him and Mark Andreessen, between the two of them, they know like everyone who should
And
be.
they are hilarious. I've gotten to know them too on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, Clubhouse it's just sort of collapsed everything into a small room.
Yeah.
You know, where Felicia Horowitz gives a dinner every Saturday night, and it's all focused on major issues that she is helping with because she does a tremendous amount of, for instance, prison reform work and health care and health policy work.
Right.
So all the big shots from those people, those areas came on also. And so it became just this fascinating place to be. And it was still small enough where you could get in a room with one of these people and ask questions and make friends.
Yeah, that's great.
And you were asking me about my glasses before. I met this woman on Clubhouse who is from New York. She's actually not in the music industry. She's a diversity trainer for Fortune 500 companies. Her name is actually Kanene Io Holder, but she calls herself on Clubhouse Reblacka for the Blacks. And she does a satire series called Black Issues. And it's like a fake magazine about 400 years of black issues. And she wanted to try to monetize that, and so she asked me for some mentoring. So we had a phone call, actually it was a Zoom call, and I saw her glasses, and I was like,
I want a pair of those.
that's what I said. they're Fendi's, and I said, "Oh my God, those are the most unbelievable glasses." And she said, "The next time that they have a flash sale, I'll tell you about it." So she actually did. She and I are. She's like my bestie now.
That's awesome.
And so she sends me the link to the flash sale site Gilt. And I ordered the glasses, and they were $99. And I was like, oh, that's so wonderful. I have these fancy glasses. I sent them into my ophthalmologist to have my prescription put in. My prescription was $600. But I have never regretted it for a minute, because nobody who sees these glasses does not say, wow, those are great glasses.
Yeah. That's awesome. They are great glasses. Well worth it. That's fantastic.
Would you like to get a word in edgewise? I know I've been.
Well, no, Francine, I want you to get all the words in, but there's so many things I want to talk to you about, because you started by saying that you're about to celebrate your 80th birthday. When is that happening, by the way?
May 14th.
That's awesome. So
Mark your calendar.
I got to mark my calendar for that. But that basically means that you started your professional career in the 60s, right? Like,
I started my Women's History Month. Here I am, a piece of women's history.
yes.
I grew up in New York. My father is in the music business then.
Okay.
And my first job in high school is as a file clerk in the William Morris office. The William Morris office at the time was the biggest talent agency in New York. And the woman who, remember, I was a woman.
Yeah, I've noticed this.
Okay. So the person who ran the file room, this is back in the day of paper, was a woman. And not only that, but she was a woman who smoked. And she would smoke cigarettes, and the ash would drop into the files. And then I would go around after her. This wasn't my job, but after her, and like empty out the files of the ashes and put them back in. In the meantime, the men were all getting to be agents, and they were me. I was the summer file clerk. So that was my first lesson about what happens to women in the workforce, because I mean, I had these jobs that if you just talk about them, they're called glamour jobs.
Right.
But if you think about what the person actually does, if that person is a woman, in those jobs is file or some, equivalent of file.
Right.
So my job was to alphabetize all the mail and all the contracts and all the scripts. And so, of course, I read them all. I mean, You just have to.
That is crazy. Now, you at the time, you graduated with a PhD in English, right?
Then I went to work at J. Walter Thompson, another fancy pants, job, a big advertising agency in New York. And what did I do there? I typed
Wow.
because I was a woman. And if you've ever watched Mad Men,
Yeah.
that was me. That was totally me. I typed, I wanted to be a writer, a copywriter, and
You're in this male-dominated world
this male
where you're coming in, highly educated, and you're basically doing a secretarial
totally.
type of job.
Totally. Which is what drove me out of the business world in the 60s.
Right.
I was like, how are you on expletives on the podcast?
You can say whatever you want. We have no we have no filters here.
Oh, you have I thought maybe you had a bleeper.
No.
No, so
We're gonna let the bleeps go.
okay, so I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to do this all my life.
Right.
So I applied I thought, well, I'll go back to academe where, it wasn't much kinder to women, but it was okay because women could be conceptualized as teachers,
Right.
whereas they couldn't be conceptualized as chief creative officers,
Right, right.
anything like
You
that.
had more autonomy as a teacher because you
I
could control your own.
Yeah, because I shut the door, and my students were my audience,
Yeah.
and they loved me because I was exactly like I am now, only younger and louder and more aggressive.
Maybe that's why I love you so much, Francine, because my mom was a teacher as well.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
you guys
right.
have that same fire. So then you started an ad agency at some point because
Well, then I got out to Phoenix because a man,
okay.
because a woman, because the early 70s, So I'm like, I find myself with this guy in Phoenix, and I look at Phoenix, and I'm like, oh my God, what can I even do here? Remember, this was like Barry Goldwater. It was
Still dirt over here.
Scottsdale and Phoenix weren't connected by a road.
Right.
It was just a dirt trail. So I had gotten a job teaching in the community college, and I thought, well, I'll only stay here a year, until this relationship with this guy, blah, blah, blah. Well, then another random accident. I fall in love with my boss, the department chairman of the English department at Phoenix College, and he tells me the story all men tell all women. My wife doesn't understand me, and we're going to get a divorce. And I'm like a young woman. I'm from New York, but I'm still young. I'm pretty naive. And I'm like, oh, well then. And he's like, oh, and besides, my wife and I have tried to have children, and we couldn't have them. I'm sterile, or I have a low sperm count, or something. That's what my wife told me. So off we go to his Volkswagen van in the desert.
Now, we might need to bleep this next part over here. I'm not sure what's coming.
What is coming?
No.
Samantha is coming.
Your daughter.
Samantha, my oldest daughter.
That's awesome.
Is coming. Some kind of, afternoon delight. And after Samantha, there was not much hope of my going back to New York because when you have a kid, New York is like snowsuits, elevators,
Right.
Whereas when you have a kid in Phoenix, it's like swimming pools and tennis clubs. It's completely different.
Right.
So I kept on teaching for 10 years, and then I got unbelievably bored. Unbelievably.
Yeah.
I mean, the students were all stoned. I couldn't be. I taught English 101. Which was a required class. I mean, it couldn't be worse. The women's movement was going on, so one thing I was able to do was introduce women's studies into, at the time I had moved from Phoenix College to Scottsdale College, because when they found out that I, was pregnant, all of the Mormon deans of all these schools went wild, and they're like, okay, what do we do with her? What do we do with her? So they sent me out to be on the founding faculty of Scottsdale Community College.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I began teaching women's studies, women's literature, and all of that. And I became basically a flamethrower for the women's movement. But that lasted, the whole period of my life lasted 10 years. And then I was extremely bored. So I left without another job.
Right.
And I went around and saw some friends of mine in the community and said, I have these writing skills. What can I do? And they looked at me and they were like, nothing. You cannot do anything. You just quit. The only thing that you can do with your writing skills.
Which was to teach, in their opinion.
Right, in their opinion. But at the time, I was also the film reviewer for the New Times, which was just getting off the ground. And I was their first film reviewer. And so, I knew a little bit about journalism. And the editor of the New Times, still a very good friend of mine, said, why don't you start a PR firm? And I said, what's PR? And I had absolutely no idea. So he said, why don't you go out and talk to some people and find out? So the one thing my PhD has given me is the ability to do research.
And learn new things.
And learn new things. That's exactly right. Because, at that time, you had to really do research.
Right.
It wasn't like you just sat there and research popped up after you typed.
or pre-filled it as you're typing.
Pre-filled it as you're typing, exactly. Watching your eye movements to see what to give you. No, it was more like I went to the library and I checked out a group of cassette tapes called Owning and Operating a Small Business. And I thought, well, I taught myself to sew through reading, and I taught myself to cook through reading. So
Why not this?
Why not this? I mean, it was so
That's amazing.
Stupid, Hamid, in retrospect, how naive I was.
But, that's exactly what every founder is that they have that naivety of not knowing how difficult something is going to be, which is what,
right.
What doesn't stop them. That naivety is what doesn't stop them from
so
moving
true.
forward, right?
Because, here, in my experience, there was no failure.
Right.
There absolutely was no failure because I had never failed. I mean, I'd gotten into the Bronx High School of Science. Then I'd gotten into Cornell. Then I'd gotten into Columbia. Then I'd gotten into Syracuse. Then I'd gotten a job. I'd gotten all these jobs. And so I didn't think that I could ever fail.
Yeah.
Well, and I had a big tailwind because Phoenix was growing.
Right, right.
So I started, my first company was called Hardaway Connections, and it was public relations, and it was all about who I knew. And who I knew was all people who played tennis at Phoenix Country Club, who in magical, karmic ways became my first clients.
Right.
Because they all knew that I could write because they knew I was a professor. And they were in business. And they were like, oh, she's an English professor? We can use her to write things for us.
Right.
So basically I learned on the job how to write and how to do PR. And my first few clients were a bank and a land developer. So I learned all about economic development, and I learned all about the financial system, and I realized, this is really pretty cool because I can, write for these people and call up the newspapers, and then I can make money. And I did. The one unfortunate thing that happened was that the father of my children was not in the mood. I mean, this, when I look back on it, I don't usually look back on things, Hamid, but when I look back on it, I fell in every woman's trap. And I'm just now thinking of Loudon, and it was never addressed
Yeah.
because I had every one of these experiences. My husband looked at me when I said I was going to start a business, and he said, "You didn't even ask me, and Arizona is a community property state, and when you fail, it's going to drag me down as well."
Oh man.
And I was like, "Okay, what do we do about this?" So I bought a condominium.
You're like, okay, we can end it now.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. And I was like, okay, let's just separate. And I'll live over here because one thing about PR, a lot of going out at night.
Right.
And, and my husband, the head of the department at Phoenix College, he was like, well, what are you doing at night out
Right.
with guys? So
Your clients are obviously men because that's
my
who own
clients
the
were
businesses.
always men.
Yeah.
Okay, so all the women at Phoenix Country Club hated me because they thought that I was sleeping with their husbands, who were my clients, and I really wasn't because their husbands weren't really very interesting.
Yeah.
They were just people from, who,
Men generally aren't very interesting.
well, some are, but some really aren't, and not everybody has the same taste.
Right.
So anyway, that was the first business, and when my husband left, when we separated, and then my husband found another girlfriend and got very quickly married, I was in a sort of depression. And I had another woman friend who was in business, and she was in an even tougher business because she was in commercial real estate. And she said to me, wait till you make $100,000, and you won't care if you have a husband. And I was like, $100,000? I had gone from making 35 as a teacher to making zip as a small business owner. And lo and behold, I made $100,000 in the first year I was in business, which was 1981. I mean, I was so lucky. My universe is so karmic. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I get to the karma coin part. But, it's like I just went drifting along randomly through the universe. And then things happened. It's like you were doing Accessoft and suddenly you were doing Pure Chat.
Yeah.
You don't really know how you got from one of those to the other. So after Hardaway Connections basically failed during the real estate recession because most of my clients were...
Of the 80s,
Yeah.
just to be clear.
Yeah. Which real estate...
Yeah.
Right. Which real estate recession? That's true.
I was a little kid, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's amazing.
And I was divorced, and I had 2 children, and there's nothing that makes you succeed more than being a single mother. Nothing.
Yeah.
There's no greater motivator. So I thought to myself, and once again. Now it's called listen to the customer.
Right.
It's called, there's books on it. There's like pivoting. There's all this stuff. I'm talking about the 80s. Nobody knew what pivoting was.
The concepts weren't like formalized
The
yet.
concepts weren't formalized, but the activities really were.
Right.
Because you kind of always do the same thing. You
Yeah.
know, oh my God, this isn't working. What do I do next?
Right. Yeah.
Something like that. So I was looking for an industry, and I don't even think that I was looking for an industry so much as a friend of mine's husband found me a client who was a tech company.
Intel.
No, it wasn't.
That
was another company later on. But found me another tech company. It's still in business. It's a public company. It's very small, and it's still in business, and I've forgotten its name. But it was going public at the time, and the entrepreneur was Korean. And the Korean entrepreneur needed public relations for going public. Suddenly, I was in tech. He made something I had no clue what it did. It was packaging for the semiconductor industry. Now you can see where Intel comes
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
But anyway, so from there, I pivoted into technology. And at the same time, I ended up pivoting. I mean, I'm using that word like I knew I
Right.
was pivoting. But
But you were basically trying to save your company by doing something different than you were already doing.
Exactly. Exactly. Please tell me what I was doing.
No.
I was desperately trying to survive.
Yeah.
You know. So then they were just, Medicare was just allowing medical claims processing. And it was some bizarre software with green screens and everything. But Medicare got to the point where it wouldn't pay doctors unless they used claims processing software. It wouldn't
Gotcha.
take manual claims anymore. So claims processing was big. And some dude that I knew from somewhere started a claims processing company. And he's like, okay, can you tell me, can you write about claims processing? And I was like, sure. Can you do? So my company pivoted from Hardaway Connections to Hardaway Marketing Services. And suddenly I was in technology and healthcare.
Okay.
And I later found out that those industries are often counter-cyclical to real estate.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah. And so I was like, I found,
Yeah. So you found something that balanced out your business
Yes.
revenues essentially by having clients on both sides of.
Yes. And also I traded home builder stocks because there were so many home builders in Phoenix, and I knew who all the home builders were, and I knew who was in trouble
Yeah.
because I lived in Phoenix.
That's awesome.
So I was like the Warren Buffett. The Warren Buffett of Phoenix.
That's great. So, fast forward a little bit to you eventually sell this.
Fast forward, I sell Hardaway Marketing Services because my kids are out of school and I'm burned out and we're in yet another recession, or
And who did you sell it to? Is that
Intel.
Okay, that's the company that you sold to Intel, and that was a big financial win.
It was I would say it was a big financial win for me then.
Okay.
Now, in Silicon Valley terms, it would be an acqui-hire with ice cream attached.
Right.
But
Well, Silicon Valley is kind of jaded. I mean, like, what about like Phoenix terms?
From Phoenix terms, it was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I was a woman. I had sold a business. I had sold it to a big tech company, But then I found out, and they'd paid off all my debt. They'd given me bonuses. They'd given me stock. They'd replaced all my equipment. This is all this stuff that I negotiated only because I never wanted to work for Intel. And I was scared because I didn't know very much about semiconductors.
Right.
I knew a lot about semiconductor packaging at that time. But I didn't know anything about semiconductors. But then I had to work for Intel and, to make all these options vest and make everything happen. And I went to Intel, and my last husband was dying at the time. And he said, "Oh, I'm so glad you finally have a job and you're going to get a paycheck. And you're not going to be scared anymore." Because I spent my whole life thinking I was not going to be able to make payroll. Never happened.
Right.
But when you're in business, you never think you're successful until the exit.
Right.
I never really.
Yeah, that's very true, actually.
You really don't. Every day, you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? This could come and blindside me. That could come and blindside me. And so I didn't ever feel successful. I mean, I faked it because everybody fakes it. I'm
Right.
crushing it. But I never felt successful till after the exit. And I was like, and then I looked back and I was like, wow, what did I do? Because again, I was a woman,
Yeah.
And I was in Phoenix, and I
Highly accomplished woman, by the way.
yeah, but by that, because had the gift, the absolute gift of having to learn all this stuff to run all these agencies, and
Right.
because everybody that I hired didn't know anything about the industries we were in, because healthcare is complex, real estate, commercial development is complex.
Then semiconductor packaging.
Semiconductors are exactly. These are complicated industries.
All right, let's move on to another topic because you've been, so for the past 20 years or so, you've been active in the local startup community. You've been
Yes.
helping founders. You've literally met like virtually every founder that is doing something interesting. You've been an early adopter of so many different technologies. I mean, the Clubhouse thing is a perfect
Right.
example of your
Oh,
early adopter
that's right. Clubhouse
personality.
is just me. I just wander in, and Bitcoin.
You were early adopter to Bitcoin as well.
Bitcoin.
Okay. Did you pay 5,000 Bitcoins for a pizza? Was that you?
No, but I bought $100. I never understood in the beginning what Bitcoin was,
Okay.
and I decided I was going to learn. Same deal. I was going to learn, so I put $100 into Bitcoin.
How much is Bitcoin at this time?
Well, 56, but we've gone through several iterations.
Okay.
I'll tell you about Bitcoin.
Okay.
So I put $100 into Bitcoin. They only had weird Bitcoin exchanges like Polonius and Kraken
Okay.
when I did it. Coinbase didn't exist yet. So I put the $100 in, and it's maybe 2012, something like that.
Wow.
And in 2018, I bought a house, and I was like, oh, God, I need a little bit of extra money to do some things to this house before I move in. So I start scrounging around in all my online files to see, where a lot of times I just have little money in little pockets that I
And you found the $100 worth of Bitcoin.
I found $53,000
Worth of
because
Bitcoin.
that's what Bitcoin had become from my
The $100
$100.
investment had become 53,000.
53,000.
That is unbelievable.
So that made it on a par with my first startup investment, which I had made many years before, which gave me the same kind of return, which gave me my bad habit of investing in startups. So I
love it.
took the Bitcoin and I sold it, and the week after I sold it, it crashed.
Oh, wow.
And I used the money in my house, but it was $53,000. I took out 50, and I'm like, I'll leave some money on the table and see what happens. So last winter, I was hanging around my backyard, and I was like, God, I'm tired of this backyard. It looks awful. We need to do something here. What should we do? Because of course I can't leave the house.
Right.
So I go back to my Bitcoin stash. By this time, Coinbase does exist, and I'm find another $20,000 because Bitcoin has gone back up. So I take all but a little of the Bitcoin out, and I put slate on my back patio, and I put new windows in my house, and I do some landscaping, and I'm like, Bitcoin has been my slush fund.
That's so amazing. I mean, the fact that you are in Bitcoin and have been since 2012, and I just barely started like understanding what it is last year is like embarrassing to me.
Because you are conservative and I am not,
This is true.
Ed, it's like Ed has a good description of me. He says, I'll still be packing my parachute when Francine has already jumped and found a soft landing.
That's a great analogy.
And that's what I have learned so much through early adopting. When I started my business, I couldn't afford a secretary. So I bought an Apple II and an answering machine. And those were the first two, And I can't even call it a cell phone. It was the kind of phone, this was 1980.
The bricks.
Yeah, yes, that they screwed into the console of your car. My friend Ed Robeson, who has always been my mentor and is now 90 and is still going to the office every day, and he and I have these big conversations about getting lucky, and how we just got lucky. Neither one of us knew what we were doing. But anyway, he gave me some advice when I started my business, and that advice was, don't get an office, get a car phone and a Mercedes. And that way you'll look. So I did. I bought a Mercedes, an imported gray market Mercedes. And one of those car phones that you screwed into the console of your car. And that's how I became known as knowing about technology. And that's how Intel found out about me. Because they were looking for somebody who had a technology marketing company in Phoenix, and there wasn't anyone else.
Yeah. Does she need to go away? Are you concerned?
Yes.
Go out? Do you want to take a break real quick? And
what will Clubhouse do?
Oh, we'll let them know that we'll be back in a couple minutes. Do you want to do that, or
yes, Maggie has to pee. That's what we're going to tell Clubhouse.
Well, that is the truth. Maggie is the dog, and we'll have to get Maggie on the camera too at some point so that people who watch this later can see her. But we'll just come back. We'll on the video we'll cut this part.
Let me.
Go ahead.
No, let's finish because.
Do you want to finish?
Yeah.
If you think she's okay, we can keep going.
She'll be all right.
Okay.
She gets restless at pretty much anything after an hour.
Gotcha.
We don't have that much more to go because I'm up to Karma Coin.
Okay, yeah. No, so that's perfect because this brings us to something you just announced yesterday.
Yes.
Which is Karma Coin.
Yes.
And this is mind-blowing. Like now you're creating your own. Okay, tell me about Karma Coin.
Okay, so I'm roaming around rooms on Clubhouse. I roam into this room where they're celebrating creators. And it turns out that Rally is a company that's creating tokens on the blockchain.
Okay.
And those tokens allow creators of anything to create their own currency whereby they can reward their fans can get access to them. Back to when I grew up, it's like Monopoly money.
Right.
It's money that is only for the game until the game gets big enough to where the Rally token, not mine is the Karma Coin.
Okay.
But all Karma Coins are backed by Rally.
Okay.
And at some point, Rally will have a value as one of those coins on the blockchain. And all of us who have all these little economies that are based on Rally, and I can't say because there's so many SEC rules around Bitcoin. You can't say it's an investment. Yeah, I'm sorry. Around cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
You can't say it's an investment. You can't say. All I can say about it is that I love the word karma.
Right.
And it defines my life.
Yeah.
You do things for other people, and things happen to you that you would never expect. It's like a miracle. It's like a daily. It's hard for me because I'm sure spiritual people, and religious people have words for this, but I am not religious, so I don't have a word for it. The word for it would probably be God. But
karma is the effect of putting positive things into the universe, and therefore positive things start to come back to you. But explain to me how the Karma Coin is used. Like, so. Can I give people Karma Coin, or do I first need to receive it from you, the creator,
Well, you can buy it on Rally, or I can give it to you.
Gotcha. You're the creator of Karma.
I am the creator of...
And your Karma Coins are created on top of Rally's cryptocurrency platform or whatever. And then when I buy Karma Coins off of Rally,
you buy
do you get a piece of that?
No.
Okay.
That's the
who
good
gets the
part.
money?
Well, nobody gets the money. People get rewards.
Okay.
And I suppose I could get a piece of it if I wanted to, but I have it in my will that if there's any, and remember, this is like, taking stock certificates in illiquid stock
Right.
as payment for services. So it's like, it's really nice to have all that, but who knows when it's going to be worth anything. But at the end of the day, I'm putting it in my will that it goes to the Startup AZ Foundation.
That's awesome.
So if anybody gets anything, that's who gets it.
Startup AZ will get it.
Yeah, I'm not making any promises. I can't, but I'm going to use this part of my life to circulate karma in Phoenix. And here's the deal. Ed has a coin.
What's his coin called?
Good.
he was trying to copy you there.
No, he didn't. He had a coin first. No, he had a coin first.
I'm messing with.
But I told him that we were doing this together so that we make sure that everybody gets good karma.
Oh, I love it. That's perfect.
So that's the thing. And it just struck me. It seemed like such an easy thing to do because Phoenix already has the branding of the most generous startup community.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't it have this little, currency called Karma Coin that is a physical manifestation of that?
I love it. So can I go buy good and buy karma and give it to people?
Yes, you can.
And can they convert it back into cash or not yet?
Well, they can if they understand enough about Bitcoin.
Okay.
But that's not its purpose. Converting it back into cash at this point where it's not
super valuable
will probably cost you more in, I'm going to teach you
transaction
a phrase,
fees.
Gas fees.
Yeah.
They're called gas fees.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. See, I love it. Francine is teaching me about it's. This is perfect. This is who you are and have been in our community, which is why I love having you in the Phoenix community. We've been so fortunate for that. Let's bring it back. So literally career began in the 60s where the civil rights are happening, the moon landing is happening, all the way to this day. You're like a pioneer on Clubhouse. You're like one of the early adopters of technology in general.
I have a back full of arrows.
But it's awesome. So what do you think about like the Arizona tech community, and based on like all of this experience that you've had, what do you think is what do you love about it besides the generosity, which you just touched on? But
and the people who I know who are my friends, there's that.
Yeah. And what do you think is like first of all, let me ask you a series of questions. The first is like, who do you think is doing the most exciting stuff here that is worth paying attention to?
The most exciting stuff here is being done in biotech.
In biotech?
Yeah,
okay.
And health tech.
And who's doing them? Which companies or people?
Well, it's mostly people like the Mayo Clinic and, TGen. It's large things like that. It's not small startups, but it will be.
Okay.
Because the next generation of startupism is not going to be hardware or software.
It's going to be biotech?
It's going to be synthetic biology. It's going to be, it's going to be all these things that we're hearing about. It's going to be, genetic, I'm going to say genetic mutations, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, even the, mRNA vaccine that we have is sort of like code to sort of solve this problem.
Right, but you don't want to say that to white Republican men because they don't take the vaccine anyway. And if you tell them it's code, there's no chance they'll take it.
Well, I don't even want to touch that for right now. But
I know. I'm sorry I said it.
But no, actually, it's fine. ASU has actually been doing some like really interesting things.
ASU, I forgot to mention them. They have been doing amazing things.
Because they started investing in biotech about a decade ago, or maybe even more, 20 years ago.
Let me tell you that if Michael Crow had not come to Arizona, we'd be nowhere. Michael Crow, there are two people that in my lifetime have done more for Phoenix than anything I can imagine. And one of them is Dick Mallory, who started TGen when his wife got cancer. And the other one is Michael Crow.
Okay.
And they have been amazing.
Yeah. Tell me why. I mean, I know I have reasons why I love what Michael Crow has done, but
Well, first of all, Michael Crow has turned around ASU. I taught at ASU, and it was a party school, and it didn't have any research.
yeah.
And it didn't do anything of note. And now it has research, and even though a lot of its entrepreneurship programs are, they keep being fledgling because the people who run them keep changing.
Right.
It's like it's hard to get them really
But
off.
they're trying.
They are totally trying. They're trying to be entrepreneurial. They're trying to forge partnerships. And Michael Crow has financed the whole thing. It's so crazy because I used to finance a lot of my tech investing
Yeah.
off real estate investments because Arizona real estate has always been a good investment. So I've always been in these real estate investments, and I've used them to provide the money that I put into all these startup companies. So so that's what Michael Crow did.
Yeah.
He made real estate partnerships and he built buildings. And not only did he change the face of downtown, which is a special thing of mine, because one of my first clients when I started Hardaway Connections was the Tremel Crow Company, which built 1 and 2 Renaissance. And they were built in they were started in 1980. And not until Michael Crow put the campus downtown, did the downtown Phoenix come back
Right.
as an interesting place to be.
That's awesome. What do you think is missing in Arizona for like the tech community to thrive?
A good education system. And
Besides like the
Yeah.
ASU and
you got to get to ASU.
right.
You have to.
So K through 12 is that
So
what you
K
mean?
through 12. K through 12 is disjointed. We have no standards because we have 200 school districts or something like that. I've forgotten what the number was. I used to know it, but there were, we have too many school districts. They can't enforce standards. They have duplication of administration.
What's the quick solution there? Like, is there a silver bullet as far as you're concerned? Are you for like voucher program or?
Voucher? Well, yes, I am. It's very interesting because nobody thinks that, lefty people from the East Coast should be for voucher programs, but I am for school choice. I don't want to call it voucher. I want to call it school choice.
Okay.
Because around the corner from me is Phoenix Christian Academy. Now, I am not a Christian. I am an atheist, but Phoenix Christian Academy provides a really, really good education that people come from miles around to get. And it doesn't cost anything because it's a charter school.
Right.
And the same thing with Basis and, some of these other charter schools. And I was on the board of a charter school for a while. It failed for a number of reasons, but one thing we do need is more school choice, and the other thing we need is more cultural diversity, as in let's not make it so hard for Mexican Americans to send their kids to school. I'm furious about that, and one thing I learned from Clubhouse is the value of diversity and inclusion and how people get the people that I was talking to on Clubhouse are brilliant, and they're constantly slapped down, and they're so talented, but they're constantly slapped down because we still are systemically racist. And so I want some kind of meaningful change for Hispanic students.
For K through 12.
For K through 12.
And that'll help get them to the right place.
Yes, and it'll lift Phoenix, and it'll stop Phoenix from having the reputation for having these crappy public schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because not all our public schools are crappy. The Gilbert public schools probably aren't, and the Scottsdale public schools probably aren't.
Right.
But if you can't afford to live in Gilbert or Scottsdale, then your kid's in trouble. So I guess I'm oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. I grew up in New York. I went to all public schools, but I'm thinking public education does not work anymore.
You think that by providing school choice, you could actually help elevate public schools?
I hope so, but I don't know quite enough about the union situation,
Yeah.
and what would happen to the teachers. And I love the teachers. It's not the teachers. It's the administrative structure and the fact that everything is based on real estate and property taxes.
Right.
You know,
Makes sense. All right, let's move on to other topics.
Nobody cares about that but us.
Well, no. Do you want to go to Clubhouse? Do you want to talk about anything
Yes.
else? Okay. Well, we have a few people on Clubhouse. I'm not sure if we got Ed actually on here. So
Somebody pinged in Ed and said your partner's talking about you again.
I love it. I want to see people raise their hands if they have a question for Francine. So Ed, Ali, Romy, Derek, and Brian, feel free to.
I know Romy. I know Ed. Is Derek neighbors?
No, it's a different person.
Okay.
But feel free to raise your hand, and here we go. We got Romy, who is coming on. So, Romy, go ahead. You're live.
Hi, Romy.
Hello, Francine, your fangirl from Berlin.
I know that. I know.
So I was wondering, because I can actually relate to a lot what you said about sort of like your journey, which I think has a lot to do with discovering talent and education in kind of like both ways. What would you say for kind of like young people starting out right now and to have all these different choices in which direction to go? Is there one question they can ask themselves to figure out what their talent is to determine their career path?
Well, that is very interesting and complex, but luckily, I have a friend who used to be a client of mine named Stephen Rudolph, who is on this app, who has a company called Multiple Natures, and what it does is testing for that. And I think the most important question that you can ask yourself as a young person is, what do you really want to do? Not what does your family want you to do? And then go and pursue that, because you can work from anywhere. You can even get a degree from anywhere. You don't have to do any of the old line things. We have so much online learning now, especially for people who are above K-12 or even above K-6, you know.
I was talking to Greg Scoresby the other day. I don't know if you happened to catch that interview, but one of the things he said that he loves this line of, instead of saying, what do you want to do when you get older, or when you are starting your career, to young people, is to ask, what world problem do you want to solve? And that's an interesting way to sort of look at it, or frame the question of what do you want to do, rather than what do you want to do, what problem do you want to solve?
Oh my God, that's such a great idea.
I love that.
Yeah. I thought the same. I was like, I got to steal that.
I'm going to steal it, because in my day, you never asked what world problem you wanted to solve.
Yeah.
You know. Although, when you really think about it, the people who went to medical school, if they had framed their question that way, might have been, what world problem was illness, you know.
Right.
Something like that. But that's a great idea, because it makes you think bigger.
Yeah, totally. It makes you think bigger, rather than just, the medical school example, you'd be working on the underlying problems rather than just treating diabetes. You'd be looking at, like, how do we solve,
Exactly.
diabetes or whatever.
Exactly.
Awesome. Romy, did you have anything else for Francine that you want to talk about?
Well, so many things, but I think this I mean, first of all, it was so brilliant to hear the entire story, and yeah, it was super inspiring. So I'll let the next person talk. But well, thank both of you so much, Hamid and
Yeah,
Francine.
absolutely. Thanks, Romy. Omar, did you have a question for Francine or comment?
Yes, I'm 16 and I'm thinking about opening a business up. I'm not going to college, so do I do that or not?
Yes. And here's why. Because at your age, you have nothing to lose. And you have lots of energy. And I'd rather, instead of saying I'm going to open up a business, you did what Hamid just said. Ask what problem you want to solve. And if you know a problem that you want to solve, that you can solve, then open a business to solve it. And forget college. You can always go back to that later.
I love it. Francine answered the question so much more definitively than I would. I would be like, well, it sort of depends on this and that. I like that. Just yes, you should start your business.
I learned that from a 16-year-old. I was on a panel with a 16-year-old guy at Gnomedex
Okay.
about 15 years ago. And he said, I'm not going to finish high school and I'm not going to go to college or, something like that. And I said, well, what are you going to do for a job? And he looked at me and he said, job? And that's when I realized I was old because I still conceptualized the world in terms of jobs.
Jobs, right.
Right. We cannot do that anymore. We absolutely cannot.
That's so.
It's a worse way to think about the world because there aren't going to be any. And if there are, you probably don't want to do them.
Right. Jobs are sort of things that you're obligated to do as opposed to things that you love to do, right? And it's not a
Exactly.
job.
Exactly.
Omar, what is it that you want to do?
Open up a pizzeria.
Very
Okay.
cool.
Okay. Where are you? Where in the world are you?
Middle East.
Oh, I definitely think you should do that. I was in the Middle East Ed, when were we in the Middle East? 2016? And I know from listening to Clubhouse that the Middle East has changed quite a bit and things are really opening up. I wish I could help you. I want to go to the Middle East and help you open a pizzeria.
I love it. Francine's got her vaccine and she's ready to move. Derek, I'm not sure I'm saying your name correctly, but feel free to ask your question or comment for Francine. And if anybody else wants to raise their hand, I'd be happy to bring you on stage.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me okay. Thanks, Amit, for allowing me to chime in for a little bit. And great to talk to you and Francine and the others as well. We've run into each other a couple of times at a few seminars at Exosoft and as well as the Scottsdale Economic Development Organization. So my point was that it may pay off for some of the attendees here who are looking for some advice to check into, which is something I did, whether they are a multi-potentialite. I don't know if you've heard about that concept. There was a TED Talk not too long ago by Emily Watkins. And basically, some people are wired a little differently, and that's why they may jump careers and may jump fields. And that's because they have many different interests, and their basic feature is just a very intense curiosity. And,
You've just
so
described me. You've
and I know that. Yes. And so that's part of the reason I brought it up. But just recently I found out that I myself am such a person, and it was just really eye-opening. And so I encourage everyone to look up multi-potentialite and the TED Talk that goes along with it, and maybe it opens some eyes and doors as well in the process.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Hey, I want to plug my room that I run
Yeah, go for it.
for people who need help. It's called Help and Encouragement from an OG, and it's on Thursday mornings at 11 o'clock on Clubhouse. And I want to plug my Karma Club, which has the Karma coin.
I love it.
Yep.
Very cool. Karma Club and
Karma coin and Ed's coin. Good coin.
good coin.
So that what you need is a collection, the good coin and the karma coin.
Very cool. Nosh, did you have a comment or question for Francine?
Yes, hi. My name is Nora. I'm from the Middle East as well, from Kuwait.
Hi, Nora.
Hi. I do know that, Francine, you're a business mentor and into entrepreneurship and all that. One of the difficulties and struggles I see that my country has, we do have volunteered, voluntarily kind of a group that has these animal shelters where we pick up stray dogs and injured cats, and we basically use our own money, and we try to receive donations from friends and families to try help them and all that. So my wish is to basically have a legal shelter for dogs and cats and all that. And it's just so difficult here in Kuwait to have that approved by them. And believe it or not, they do kind of hack into these shelters of me and my friends and a lot of other people's, and they just put these dogs down for no reason when, we have these tickets for them, we have homes for them in the States and in Canada, and we've been helping them, and it's not really working for us.
I hate to say this because I don't do it anymore, but the way to change that is PR. There is so much opportunity now to bring public attention to that issue and put pressure on the Kuwait government, because
It's a great idea.
it's an issue that has so many constituents in the United States and Europe. So, and you're saying that you have tickets for them and people to adopt them in the U.S. I'm sure that's true, because if you can believe it, during the pandemic, we had a shortage of rescue dogs because
Right.
everybody wanted a pet.
Right.
And I want you to come back to my room on Thursday morning if you can. I don't know what time it is in Kuwait, but if you can at all come to my room so that we can get further connected and I can explain to you how to draw attention to your issue.
Yes, yes. Okay, definitely. Thank you for that. I
And
just want to say that we do have a couple of websites online, change.org and many others. We are in touch with a lot of American ladies and UK ladies that help us put the word out there. And it's just, there's not much interference going on, from the outside world, from other countries. So, but yes, definitely.
okay,
Please let me
I'll
know
try
how
to
I can
help
join.
you. I'll try to help you.
Thanks, Nosh. And then
Thank you.
we'll do Brian. One last question from Brian or comment, and then we'll wrap it up.
Hi, Francine. I just wanted to say I grew up in like the 80s and 90s, and like my parents and my grandparents were not tech savvy at all. My mom especially didn't even understand like a VCR back in the day, and like their knowledge of technology is limited to basically Facebook and Netflix. And so, I mean, since I got to Clubhouse, you're one of the people I've been most fascinated in because you are so on to all of the emerging techs, like on every side. You understand like the biotech, you're into crypto. I mean, and you get it. You're not just like riding the waves. Like you understand what all these things do. And it warms my heart every time. I mean, even Clubhouse, you have a very firm understanding of Clubhouse. And I just want to tell you that you're kind of an inspiration to me, seeing a bunch of older people kind of like ignore tech or just not get it. Like you are on. And thank you.
Brian, I
Oh,
couldn't agree more with your comments. I feel the exact same way about Francine. It's like who bought Bitcoin in 2012? I mean, come on.
a lot of really geeky
Yeah, but
people.
It's amazing. I love it. Oh wait, Ed is coming on as well.
And
So we got to let Ed say something.
That was
Since
awesome.
He's a partner over here. Go ahead, Ed. Sorry.
I know, just coming by to say hey. And yeah, the analogy of Francine, you know, if she sees a cliff, she'll just run and jump, and she'll always find that parachute or the haystack or the soft landing, and it is so inspiring. Because as she I was kind of joking before, you know, I'm by the time I'm like packing my parachute, she's already like somewhere amazing, and I'm running behind, catching up. But thanks always for leading the way. Thanks for always inspiring me and others. It's pretty awesome.
Thanks for being my partner. This is not easy to be my partner. I know that.
All good. And I just looked it up when you finally convinced me to actually sit down and talk to you. That annoying person that all these Arizona Software Association board meetings, so it was hard to be in the same room. Like, oh my gosh, this is actually a pretty wonderful person. And I started to understand your methods and that you were actually pretty amazing, but you had a loud bark when you needed to.
Yep.
Ed, just for our audience, Ed and Francine have been partners in Stealthmode Partners for 21 years now, or 22 years now?
When?
99, right?
99, Ed?
Yep, sounds about right.
So tell us, give us one highlight moment of the partnership, like an investment, something that went wrong, just a quick story maybe.
$8 million for Opnics.
Tell us more. What is that? Is that an investment you guys made, or?
It's an investment that we raised money for that we were part of. And its goal was to reduce the latency of internet packets.
Okay.
And it was so early. And the entrepreneurs didn't listen to Ed and I were the advisors.
Okay.
And the entrepreneurs were young, and they really didn't listen to us.
There's a hidden set of words in there: young and stupid, right? They normally are, right?
They blew through $8 million in a year, and that was just as the economy collapsed.
In the .com bust.
Right.
Ed, did you have another story you want to share?
That one was a pretty good one. And it was also, Francine was being way too modest. Basically, she kind of single-handedly, out of thin air, pulled together an $8.3 million round for a startup that had pretty much not even a business plan. And yeah, it was definitely interesting. But to me, one of the favorites is when we first all started this, it was actually started as a loose alliance of a bunch of people all working on different parts of helping startups get started and grow. And we had big debates of what the name should be. And I finally prevailed. We kind of came down I think it came down like Venture Soup or Stealth Mode. And then it ended up being the hilarious name for Stealth Mode for one of the most visible people in the community. And I've always savored that, and we've always kind of joked that I'm the stealth in Stealth Mode, and she's the mode. She's the one who gets it done, and I'm quietly behind the scenes thinking about how to do it better, and she's already out there and got it done. I'm like, oh good, yeah, let's do it that way. So
I love that.
So thank you. Yeah, so she's always been great about the activation energy, and I've always hopefully, she's been a good influence on that, me just jumping more often, and hopefully I've been somewhat a good influence on her, maybe thinking a moment before she leaps, but she always has good direction on the leaping. So I'm learning more of that too. But yeah, so having Francine operator in the brand Stealth Mode, when she is such a public person.
That's right.
Is amazing.
When Ed said Stealth Mode is a good name, I was like, are you kidding?
Well, I love it.
It's been a fabulous name.
Yeah, but in context, at the time, it was kind of referring to the company's grown quickly and on the radar before competition could react. But we've kind of rebranded it as kind of the visible support network behind entrepreneurs. And that's what we've been kind of doing ever since. So how do we help provide scaffolding around early stage startups through connections, through advice, through jumping in as part of the team, and there's so many different ways there's so many different, many real estate startups have so many missing parts that are more than just money. So it's out of filling all those gaps. And Francine has been doing that at scale for 20 years now, and I'm in awe.
Well, thank you for that commentary, Ed. And I couldn't agree more.
I feel
you
like
guys,
I just got the Lifetime Achievement Award.
you guys have been super generous with your time to the startup community in Phoenix. I know that for sure. I see it on Clubhouse. You guys are both there giving advice to everyone. Thank you for everything that you do, Francine. Happy early birthday, 80th birthday. You're celebrating
Happy
May 14th.
birthday, Francine.
Happy birthday.
It's May 14th.
Thank you.
It's
It's
a
not
little bit
yet.
early, but
Just
like the podcast is, you
Give
know.
me a few months.
Well, then happy St. Patrick's Day. Go get a shot.
I will. Okay.
But I love chatting with you. I love seeing you. I'm glad you got your vaccine so you can get out. I'm glad I was the first person you got to see getting out there. So it was awesome. And we'll wrap it up there. I'll give you the last few words.
Oh, no, another 10 years.
All right.
I wonder what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
I love it.
Let's hope you help us with opening a shelter in the Middle East.
You know, I'm going to, like everything else, I'm going to give it a shot.
I love that
Great.
attitude about you. Thanks, Francine. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Francine.
And Francine, looking forward to the part 2 of the podcast 10 years from now. We'll recap what was
Exactly.
transpired for 10 years.
Exactly.
So looking forward to that, hanging out with y'all.
That sounds awesome. We'll make it a date.
Okay.
Thanks, Francine. All right.
Bye.
That's a wrap.